Last episode was not easy. In the last episode, eBay sales hit an all-time low due to the Canada Post strike, making it nearly impossible to progress in this challenge. Despite all this, we had only one goal in mind: get the Charizard. And when the smoke cleared and the dust settled, we managed to turn $28 into $409, which gave us more than enough to get Charizard, marking the last of the big three that we needed. Throughout each and every episode, we've continuously been able to expand the collection, slowly but surely getting us closer and closer to completing the base set. Now, with Charizard out of the way and where he rightfully belongs, what now? The closer we get to completing the original base set, the harder it is to find what we need. And after a little over 2 months of trying to complete our goal with only a starting budget of $100, we now have 86 cards out of the original 102. So now that the more valuable cards have been captured, we just need to push a little more to finally reach the finish line. So with the intro out of the way and 16 cards left to capture, let's go. Well, things looked a lot better when we had $409 in the budget, but as of right now, it doesn't really look that bad. At least we're not at $28 like at the start of episode 3. Sales even started picking up a bit on eBay since I was able to find a partial solution to the whole Canada Post strike problem. But before getting into that, let's see what's sold so we know exactly how much we have to work with. As mentioned earlier, with Canada Post still not shipping anything, sales are actually a little different now. I'm now using a courier named Chit Chats, who always provides tracking with every order, and their prices are pretty good. It's actually cheap enough that now I'm able to ship to the US. I just charge a couple extra dollars for shipping and that's it. Thank God for this, because almost all my sales are coming from the US right now. I think most people in Canada just assume that all sellers on eBay use Canada Post and they'll have to wait forever to get their product. Maybe that's why they're not buying. I really don't know. But yeah, okay, sales. This Hitman Trilogy HD Collector's Edition game we picked up in episode 1 sold for $28 after shipping and fees. The 70s One Hit Wonders CD we got in episode 2 sold for almost $15 after fees. This Death Human CD sold for around $9. Then there's this double CD set of Queen, the best of, which also put $9 in our pockets after fees. Before I figured out my Chit Chat situation, we sold this Pokemon card for $3.60 plus $5.75 for shipping. I wasn't sure how to get this card to this customer, and he lived about 20 minutes from my place, so I personally delivered the card to him and put it into his mailbox. It wasn't so bad since I had another customer who lived about 10 minutes from his place, so I was able to deliver both orders in the same day. Anyways, we had a few other sales that came in, and in addition to those sales, we were able to sell almost every Nintendo Switch game we picked up from last episode. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sold for $45, Mario Tennis sold for $35, Mario Sonic Olympics sold for $40, and Just Dance sold for $15. We even sold the Topps Pokemon cards from episode 2 to somebody locally for $10. We definitely could have gotten more had we listed them individually on eBay, but now since I'm charging about $4 to $5 for shipping on each item, I imagine it's going to be tough for someone to pay $5 shipping on a card that's only worth like $1 or $2. So with those sales shipped and delivered, our starting budget for this episode is $322. So things are looking pretty good right now. Then things got a little better. We have 3 different things to go pick up. We have 73 Xbox 360 games for $100 to go pick up, this PS3 lot, and these Pokemon cards. Right off the bat with the Xbox games, we can see some titles that have pretty good value. And considering the fact that we're paying $100 for all 73 games, we're only paying about $1.37 per game. Some of the games with pretty good value here are these 2 copies of Left 4 Dead 2, Batman Arkham Origins, Mortal Kombat Complete Edition, this Call of Duty Black Ops and Black Ops 2 combo pack, and the game with the greatest value, Need for Speed Most Wanted. With a deal this good, I had to leave right away to go pick everything up. I brought everything home, and the first thing I did was I listed the games that have pretty good value just to get an idea of how much all these games are actually worth. So after listing about 30 games, they should sell for about $364 after fees on eBay. Now, I had an idea of what to do with the other games, the lower valued ones, but we'll get to that later. Next is this PlayStation 3 bundle that we found for $80. The PS3 console and these games could maybe get you about $80 to $100 after fees. But then there's this last picture. Look at the PS1 games that are included. They're pretty good. I actually remember playing Medieval as a kid, so this was really cool to pick up and test and play for a little while. And that's not to take away from the other PS1 games. The rest of the games are pretty valuable too. I went ahead and listed the console with some of the PS3 games on Facebook for $80. So once the console sells, which should hopefully be within a few days, we practically break even on the deal. Then I went ahead and listed the PS1 stuff individually on Facebook and on eBay, and I moved on to the next and most important deal we found, the Pokemon cards. There's some really nice cards here, and since the Alakazam and the Gengars were currently on hold for someone else, the cost for all these is $100. The best part is that there's a few cards we can actually keep for the collection. We get to keep these 2 holos right here. So we had one thing in mind. We want to add these 2 cards to the collection and hopefully resell the rest for at least $100. So we're basically getting this Gyarados and this Machamp for free. Let's go pick everything up, list everything, and see exactly where we're at. Thankfully, my experience I got from listing all those cards in episode 2 paid off. This really wasn't so bad. And after taking about 45 minutes to take pictures of all the cards and list everything on eBay, we had an amount. It looks like after fees, we would resell all these cards for about $157. So we keep these 2 holos for free, plus we should make around $60. Hey, sounds pretty good to me. Then the rest of the day passed without anything eventful happening. Oh, except we sold a ton of Xbox 360 games from the lot we just picked up and posted yesterday. After selling all these games here, our total budget is now at $143.87. So we basically have more than enough to complete our set now. That's obvious. The only challenge now is finding the cards. We need more cards. And cards we got. The seller who sold us the Pokemon cards yesterday sent us a picture of the rest of his cards. I asked initially if he had more cards, but he told me he didn't have too many others, so I didn't really make too much of it. But as you can see, he has a pretty healthy amount of cards, I gotta say. I can see that the trio we need right away, and the Alakazam and Gengar are now available since the first buyer never showed up. So we made a new deal for all these cards for $60. I know I can probably get about $35 to $40 maybe for the Alakazam, so it looks like there should be no problem with breaking even here. But for me, I'm just really excited to go through all these cards and find more that we actually need. Hopefully, we finish the set right now. Nah, probably not. But hey, you never know. Let's go get them. So I picked up the cards, and on my way back, I remembered that because my shipping costs are pretty high, now with the Canada Post strike and all, I can't just list a common card or an uncommon card individually now on eBay. I need to find a new way to post all these cards where the shipping doesn't seem too outrageous or overly priced. So I came up with something that I hope is going to work. Because if it does, I can buy cards and resell them pretty quickly without having to take several hours to post everything online. If I can get the listing process to be faster and less tedious, this can be huge. It's already so easy to ship a card on eBay. Once it sells, you don't need to worry about a customer saying it doesn't boot up in their system or it doesn't load, and for the most part, the shipping cost should be about $1. All I use for supplies to ship cards are these team bags here and these sleeves. Once they're packed up, I put them in an envelope, and that's it. The only annoying part is the listing of the cards, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed here and hoping that this works. Instead of listing everything individually, first thing I did was separate all the cards into their respective sets. One pile is for base set, one pile is for jungle, and one for fossil. Next, I go through all the cards of each set and separate them by rarity. So for jungle, let's say I put all the common cards in one pile, uncommon in another one, and then rare in another. Then I take a few commons, a few uncommons, and a rare card, and list them on eBay in lots of around 6 to 8 cards, and I put them up for auction. For the most part, I priced them by just basically charging around 60 cents per common card, minus the starter Pokemon like Charmander, Squirtle, or Bulbasaur, since I know that they're a little bit more valuable. $1.50 for an uncommon card, and the rare cards I would look up the actual value. So I would add up the value of all the cards in the lot, then subtract about 20%, then list them at that price. My thought on this is that if I underpriced these cards, then all of these listings should sell right away. And if I overprice these cards, no one will buy them, the listings will have no watchers, and I'll know to reduce the prices a little more when I relist them for auction the following week. So after listing all these commons and uncommons in separate lots, the total value that we can get after fees is about $182. So we paid $160 for everything, and we should get back around $339 in total. And an even better thing is that instead of taking something like 6 to 7 hours to list each and every single card individually, I was able to get everything listed in about an hour and a half. I also left out one important part. We found 2 more cards that we needed for the collection. Dugtrio, which we saw in the picture that he sent, and Arcanine. Oh, and one more thing that's been bothering me a lot since episode 2. When I go through the collection, the shadowless cards in here just look kind of weird to me. Almost like they don't really belong. I put them in here because technically, yes, they are still base set cards. But if I found the original base set cards to replace these shadowless cards with, first of all, they can probably resell for a pretty nice amount. And secondly, for me, it just looks a lot better if everything was from the exact same version of the base set. So I went ahead and removed every single shadowless card here, eager to replace them. And after going through all the cards that we just got, it looks like we're able to replace every single shadowless card with the original version. Except for one, this Weedle right here. After I replaced everything, I gotta say, I find that this looks a lot nicer. Oh, and would you look at that? We already sold some Pokemon cards. Oddly enough, the first Pokemon card that we sold from this lot is the first Pokemon card that we got in episode 1. Nidoking Holo, along with this Muk Holo, sold for around $20 after fees. We also just sold the PS3 console on Facebook for $80. Mortal Kombat Complete Edition just sold, and so did Medieval. The Canada Post strike has officially ended now, so sales are starting to see a huge increase. With sales back, there's only a few things left to do in this episode. Ship everything, try to find more Pokemon cards, and wait till the end of the week to see how well our Pokemon card auctions did. With all these sales coming in, I was definitely feeling a little overwhelmed. We sold a lot of the holos we picked up at the start of the episode. And while I did find some Pokemon cards on Marketplace, the guy won't be available for another week or so. So the sales came and gone, and it's officially the end of the week. All of our auctions have ended. All those cards we listed on eBay, how did they do? Well, the short answer is, they did really well. We sold a lot of different listings, and the auctions that didn't sell had some watchers, so I just decided to relist them again and hope for some more positive results. But as for all the cards that did sell, one buyer won 2 auctions for 13 cards, which gave us around $7 after fees. And there was another buyer who looked like he wanted to buy every card we had. He won 9 auctions, which came up to 62 cards, worth around $41 after fees. And on top of that, I messaged him after he won to let him know that any other card he gets will have free shipping. So he bought another 7 cards from the shop. All in all, we made about $55 in total from this one transaction. So, from that Pokemon card deal we got earlier in the week, where we paid $160 in total, in 1 week's time, we made $207. So we're already up $47. All the big hitters sold. One of the Ancient Mews sold on Facebook Marketplace for $36. Dragonite sold for $50. And once everything was said and done, This good-looking spreadsheet here of cards available on eBay now looks like this. And as for the auctions, this is how it looked at the start of the week. And after 1 week, having sold 75 cards in 11 auctions, it now looks like this. Now that we saw how our first attempt at auctions did, there's only one thing left to do. Throughout the making of this video, I had to deal with possibly the biggest issue I've ever had so far while running my online business. Sales shutting down during the busiest sales period of the year. And despite that, despite the issues, despite the stress, despite the difficulties, I can confidently say now that this incredibly difficult period for me has led me to start selling to the US through a new courier, which ultimately has drastically improved my sales. They say everything happens for a reason, and while I'm not necessarily excited about the next issue this business will encounter, I'm sure that if I think long enough and I don't give up, I'm sure we can turn the next bit of adversity into something positive too. We currently have $450 in our budget and 12 cards left. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next episode where we'll hopefully be able to catch them all.